Will just made a post.
Check, check.
Good evening, I'm Mark Maxey. We're broadcasting live from Okemah, Oklahoma. Tonight's show is a personal friend of mine, Brian Collins, goes by the name of Nasty Purple. You see some pictures of me down by the side. Worked in the music business, produced live shows, worked with the Killers, Brandon Flowers, King's X, Merle Haggard. I've traveled with bands. I've been a road manager. But more importantly, Brian has been a friend. I've mentored him, shared my ideas. We were glad to have him on the show with us tonight. And without further ado, I want to welcome you all. I got too many things I'm doing at once. And let me get to Brian. There we go. Brian, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good. So let's go back. You're what, 30, 31 now?
30.
30. And I met you when you were 16 years of age, almost half your life ago.
Yep.
When your band came into the studio where I had my office, and we were discussing whether or not to put you on a live show. And it was real interesting because why? Tell me why it was interesting with your parents.
Well, me and my 3 other bandmates, hang on, I gotta adjust the sound here and get some feedback. Me and my bandmates, one was my cousin and a couple friends of ours, we were all homeschooled, and we were 16, going out playing in bars, and when we met Mark Maxey, he was running the show at a place called Bricktown Live. It was one of our first shows, maybe within our first 10 shows, 5 shows, something like that. He had to, for the sake of our drummers, for our drummer's mother, who was the most conservative of all, he had to pull out tables to make it look like a restaurant. And so that's what he did. And
it was crazy.
Much to the bewilderment of the management there.
And I mean, y'all were 16 at the time. It was funny. I had my clipboard with me, my long hair, and I was just going over the set list and checking off things and seeing where the next band was, and made sure my roadies were ready to move you guys off stage, move the new people on. And you know, Austin's the drummer is looking at me real intently, shaking his head, and I'm like, right on, motherfucker, you know. And pretty soon my eye caught his bass drum set. Every time he hit the pedal, it just kept moving, and it was getting ready to fall off the drum platform. So ran up there, pushed it back into place, put something down so it couldn't do that again, and he shook his head, and I was like, man, I got to pay more attention. But tell me a little bit about why you got involved with music and how that kind of took place with you early on.
I started playing piano when I was like 8. My mom taught me, and I played for about 3 years, and then kind of 11, I got bored, kind of reached a roadblock, and then I started listening to a lot of alternative rock, Christian alternative rock, such as Switchfoot. They were the band Switchfoot from San Diego, California, and they inspired me pretty much. That band gets the trophy for that. And my cousin, Caleb, who was, I think, just about a year or less, I think maybe 6 months younger than me, he and I started hanging out more, and he was starting to learn how to play guitar. And he told me he was putting together a band, and I was the only one he thought might be able to sing the best. Which, looking back, our vocals are so bad, it's laughable that era was so short on good vocalists, because it's a hard style to sing without damaging your voice. But yeah, so we went through a couple incantations of the band configuration, but we pretty quickly got to 4 members, bass, keys, drums, guitar. I played bass and vocals because our bass player quit. And that was the only way I could keep the band going. Hard style to sing. And excuse me one second.
Here, let me interrupt just for a second. Let's go to this video and listen to it.
Cool. And
So, kind of walk me through a little bit, because when I first started to work with you guys as a manager, it was real interesting, because your live shots that you use look like MTV quality. So, I mean, in a lot of ways, from a local band, you guys had a plethora of videos. We started getting you booked in clubs and bars across Oklahoma and other states, but you already had built in this stage presence. Tell me about how that came about, where that took place, and how it helped formed your idea of what music was, because Emit was what I would call kind of pop punk, in a way, pop rock, but pop punk, and then you guys moved into more of another band that we'll get to later, and then now you're something else. But I want to kind of set this stage on progression. So put your mind back in when you're 17, 18 years of age. I start managing you guys, and your experience.
Yeah. So it was a total fresh start. um, learning to sing and write lyrics. That was the start. That was the first hurdle. How do you write your first song? Anyone who hasn't written a song but kind of feels like they might like to do music, that is often like the first hurdle is like, how do you make up a lyric? Like, it can feel really strange to try and take your first steps, especially at 15. And then I remember we had a first show booked. There was a birthday party. I remember being nervous for ever since the date got booked. Just this dread of the show coming out of stage fright. And, last couple of days were terrible. But the show ended up going fine. We played like 2 cover songs, and that was it. And then just from there, we ended up writing more and more originals, added our 4th member, Benjamin. And then, I think Benjamin joined on, right about the same time, a little before or after that you started managing us. It was a little bit after he joined, but we just went from being a band that had no clue what they're doing, except our guitarist was pretty good at trying to book, and his older brothers knew how to book shows, but we didn't have any sort of good presentation as far as like our merch table or looking like a real professional act. But we had a pretty good stage presence for.
Where did you learn this stage? Where did you learn the stage presence?
Probably just from watching Switchfoot, because they had a pretty aggressive, in-your-face, very, for what it was, very soulful, intimate, very sincere. The music was definitely more sincere then, so that was kind of what we were trying to project. And at the time, we were writing at least vaguely Christian rock, so that was kind of the tone that had it to be kind of sincere, but in a way that rocked.
Sure.
When we started working with you, we started to have our first advice on, like, we had no idea what we were doing or what the music industry was like, or signing band agreement forms, or getting on I'm blanking on it.
FM taxi.com.
Right, yeah, all that, and like our BMI or ASCAP, which royalty association we wanted. So yeah, and then eventually that band, it went for quite a while. It went through starting in high school, 4 years of high school, and then 3 years through college. And then while I was in college, I was learning about. I was a classical voice student, pretty much. And so I had so many bad habits, and I worked through all those through the many years and learned classical theory. And we all, our keyboardist Benjamin was also going to music school, and he played oboe pretty well. Actually had a scholarship through a nice school. But he ended up coming out of his college experience with a passion for electronic music. Bands such as Nero and Skrillex were getting really big at that time. Nero was a big influence of ours, and we had our guitarist at that point, after 7 years, he was moving on to something new. So we decided to make electronic music rather than replace our guitarist. And we did that for like another 7 years.
Sure.
And that band was called Rave War.
Let me see if we can get this going. And I think this was the show that I was having severe asthma attack, and you guys had to take me to the hospital afterwards.
I totally forgot about that. I don't remember the other time we took you to the hospital.
We'll get to that. That's pretty funny.
We're always taking Mark to the hospital after shows. A joke.
But I mean, when I look at these videos, I definitely see between you and Caleb a lot of playing. There's a lot of visual expressions, physical expressions from Austin, and of course, I'm always interested when a bass is the lead singer. But I remember when we did a gig at the what used to be the Green Door. I forgot what it was called after that, but it was there on Western in Oklahoma City. And he was doing, while he was playing, he would run up, jump on the wall with his 2 feet and do a flip. You know, I mean, your shows were just so much out of the box.
Yeah, Caleb was always super athletic. He had 5 brothers. They all played basketball for all the way through grade school and high school, so they're all really athletic.
God, look how young you guys are there. God almighty.
But Caleb definitely brought the, at least initially, 50% or more of the fire that kind of, was our live show. And he was one of the better guitarists his age, and that was always a big advantage to us, was our age. And it almost became kind of a mental crutch. I feel like it kept us from trying to be better, because people were like, well, you guys are really good for your age. And so we're all like, we're pretty cool. And I look back on our stuff and like, it's like any art you look back on 15 years later, or 10.
And I remember producing live shows every Friday and Saturday night in Bricktown for Brewer Entertainment and Downtown Music Box. And I'd get home at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And hell, a lot of times you were 16, 17 years of age calling me that early morning. And we would talk for hours about, the music business. Tell me how bands put a tour together. How does that work? What about photograph? And we talked about all aspects of the music. But I never will forget the advice that I gave you all, that I give all bands that I work with, which is, number one, why are you doing this? Because my reply is, if they need pat on the backs, great, good job. You might as well spend the money that you use for lessons and equipment and go hire a therapist and work through your issues. It's easier that way. But I look for people that they have to create. They have to perform. Because if they don't, they just have to. So talk to me about how that developed with you, because you're a total professional musician now. You're internationally known. You're being used by other EDM artists as a bass player and singer. You're introducing funk in a unique way in EDM. We'll get to that. But I'm just trying to build a stage on how you developed. So you're in college, you're using music theory. One thing that I noticed that you guys started vocalizing before you went on stage so that your voice was relaxed and ready. Talk to me about all that.
Yeah, there was quite like a delay between the time that I started singing classical and actually learning good technique. It took a while before I could take any of that and translate it to contemporary rock pop vocal. Mainly because I think the rock pop vocal was characterized by not singing properly. So, like the kind of Nirvana sort of sound that got started. It's all kind of part of that thing, all the way up to the 2000s at least, with contemporary, where alternative rock went. So it took a while, but eventually I was able to, find a better, healthier way to sing because I used to lose my voice after every show. And so that just kind of became a thing that we all wanted to warm up. Although, it only did so much good because I was the only one that knew how to really sing or whatever. And even I struggled here and there. But where I really saw a lot more improvement to where I am today, right after college, one of my jazz professors, he had a wedding band that had been around ever since I'd been born, 1989. And the bass player died of some, I think, a brain tumor of some kind. So very tragic there, but because of that, I ended up playing for the very first time, stuff from the era of like Michael Jackson, Chicago with horns and a full band, eight-member band where we were trying to replicate all the harmonies, and I had never tried singing anything other than classical or some jazz, a little bit of that, and then rock. So it really, we were playing in this wedding band called Sold Out, soldoutrocks.com. If you're in Oklahoma, we had the best.
Was Brian Burrell in that?
No, that was his good friend Jeff Kidwell.
Jeff Kidwell,
whose father was one of the people that started the UCO Jazz Lab. Kent Kidwell, maybe you might know that name, but his father was one of the founders. And other big name out of that school, but not in the band of mine, was Lee Rucker. You remember Lee Rucker?
I do remember Lee Rucker.
He's got a following. He's got a little cult following for sure. He's so good, super nice.
Sure.
But that environment, actually, we can talk about my jazz training. It was really cool environment because the UCO jazz program is probably one of the best jazz schools, oddly enough, as far away as like Denton, Texas. I think is the next best jazz school in the Midwest, in that kind of southern Midwest area. But they're also humble. Like all the teachers really promoted a sense of humility that you'd hear them talk about national acts, famous names. I would ask, like, what were they like when they came through? And they'd be like, he was an asshole.
Yeah.
And they just had, it didn't matter who you were or how good you were, if you were not there mentally and you couldn't be a normal person, and they didn't care about you. They just lost respect for your whole art.
And that was one thing that I worked with you guys on, because since I already knew you and worked with you, we had a rapport. But I remember saying, you all need to step up your game in talking to your fans, getting into the audience. And I said, man, you all need to even network with the other bands. And there was some conflict on even doing that. But it's through those relationships that has led you to where you are today. And I think that's important for anyone that wants to get involved in the music business, is network. Get to know the other bands. You're not in competition with them. You're only in competition with yourself. But you want a band agreement. You want to set yourselves up as your own publisher so that from day one, it's your music. And that way, if a label wants you, you all get a lawyer and you hammer out the royalties, but you own your music. And I embedded that into your all's heart every show, every time we got together. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And I remember an old cat of mine, he was the manager of a band that did a hell of a lot of traveling, East and West Coast, and God, I'm trying to remember his name. He was kind of heavy set, but he was the one that booked you guys into that club on Western.
Is that Chad?
No, the other guy. Chad was part of the group, but the main guy that I knew, man, I can see him. So anyway, yeah, we're talking 15, 16 years ago, half your life ago. But we also were unique in the fact that the people that we knew and interacted with were part of UCO ACM, who had Scott Booker, who was not only a friend of mine, but mentored me in a lot of ways. And he was the manager from day one of the Flaming Lips. Did you ever hear that story, how he got hooked up with the Flaming Lips? Scott Booker was selling records at Rainbow Records on 23rd Street. And every time that the Flaming Lips went on tour, they needed money for gas and food. So Wayne Coyne would bring in all of his albums to sell, and Scott would say, okay, I can give you about $300 for these. And I'll put them in a box, hold them till you're off tour, and then I'll sell them back to you at the same price, $300, no interest. And, Wayne's got a great mind. I love him so much. Off the wall, true artist, very right brain. But he told Scott, well, listen, I forwarded our phones to Rainbow Records, so in case we get booked somewhere else, just, act like our manager. And that's how Scott Booker got out of selling records and working for the Grammy Award winning Warner Brothers signed band, the Flaming Lips. But Scott would always give us advice. Scott would always make himself available to any band out there that was trying to get their career started. So, I mean, you guys at UCO were blessed from day one with, Lee Rucker, Brian Gurrell, Scott Booker. Did you ever interact with Wayne at all?
No, I never got to meet Wayne.
Oh, wow.
I did, funny enough. So out here in Denver, I drive for Uber. And every now and then you meet someone who knows somebody or is somebody sometimes. And this guy was from New Mexico. And turned out he was the manager or the booking agent for Meow Wolf, which is this like super psychedelic art room. You pay for admission and you wander through it for the day. Super cool, but apparently they throw shows every now and then. But he knew Wayne Coyne, funny enough. He had been friends with him. He said, he was like, Wayne's calling me all the time.
Let's briefly tell people, if they want to find your music on Spotify, they go to bit.ly/nastypurple with capital N, capital P. Instagram is instagram.com/nastypurplemusic. If other musicians or collaborators want to work with you, they can get a hold of you at nastypurplemusic at Gmail, Facebook, Nasty Purple, Twitter, Nasty Purple. This little cute, psychedelic, flashing GIF just has my name all over it. It has nothing to do with you, but it has something to do with me. And, the ongoing joke that we've had, we'll get to second. First of all, we were in Kansas doing a gig, and I don't know if you remember this, but at the end of the night, when I went to get the money, we were shorted about $150. And I told the lady, no, we were supposed to get, $250. No, we only pay first-time bands out of state, $125. And I went, hang on for a second. And I had my notebook. I had the email confirmation. I said, this is the email I got from your owner, who's the booking agent. There's the agreed amount price. She looked at it, went back to the door and said, boy, you're professional. And I said, yeah, that's how I train my band. You never go into a club without a contract signed and a copy of that contract. But we were there and we were driving back, and all of a sudden my health with my stomach and gut issues, I had to go to the bathroom. And it wasn't one of those, let's wait till the next restaurant. It's like, find a damn place now. And Caleb just pulls into this building that's a hospital, and I go running in, and there are two policemen, and they go, what are you here for? And I said, well, almost 50 years of age. I have bowel issues. I got to go to the bathroom now. Boy, he just slid that door open and pointed, and man, I was going. And so what did you guys do about that? Because that is what's so funny.
We just took a picture of the emergency room entrance and posted on, I forget, maybe it was MySpace or Facebook. I forget what point we were at. Then just said that we had to take you to the emergency room.
To get a dump, to take a dump. You guys actually, told everyone in the world my business. And we've always joked about that. And then I got involved in the oil industry, moved away. You guys kind of went on. I would come back every so often. But every summer, you all did something that was not what every band did. Tell me about your trips down to Texas and why.
Well, this was it branched off as we were starting to make more friends. Like the later we got in high school, we got in contact with this one group of friends who Benjamin knew very well. And they've been going to this event down in Dallas ever since 2005, I think, or 2010 or something like that. We started going in 2009, and it was an event called QuakeCon, and it was held at this really big hotel in Dallas. And it was just a gamer convention, which some of us were barely even gamers and barely gamed, but if you wanted, you could bring a computer and LAN together, because that was before high-speed internet, or at the cusp of it. So that was the only way you could play with multiple people back then, back in that day. And so we would just goof off around this hotel, and then one of our friends, Steve-O, at Equinox Visual.
God love Steve-O.
He was actually the video guy from the church that we played at. We played at a church called Life Church for many years. And the video guy from that whole operation, he would come to this event and he would take videos of everything, edit together this, what he called QuakeCon experience video.
That's one thing
highlight of which was on the last night. We would go into an elevator, pick any old elevator in the hotel, and we would do the party elevator. So when people would get in, we had the camera rolling. We had some sort of gimmick or theme for the year, such as like a Hawaiian theme. We got tiki torches and grass skirts, or a wedding. We got.
You all gave away prophylactics one year.
Say what?
You gave away condoms one year.
Did we?
Yeah, and they had printed up. You guys even had them printed up where they said "party elevator."
I forgot about that. That was so good, especially because everyone in that group was homeschooled and super conservative.
And your hair and my hair
handing out condoms
was long, and people would get into the elevator sometimes, and they would call you who, because we colored your hair. Yeah, we dyed it red, and everyone that saw me was like, I'm Jerry Garcia.
Peaceful deadhead.
But tell me also, there was a lot of people on Mixer are gamers, so they'll probably remember you all from Party Elevator, but also 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, you would go into the main computer hall where thousands of computers and gamers were, but you guys were dressed up. Well, I'll let you tell the story.
You don't have a video, do you?
Do I?
Yeah.
All right, hang on.
If not, I'll set it up. I'll set up the video and let me know if you have it in a second.
Is it in Jimmy's deal?
No. You have to go to Super Game Time 2000. But that's okay. It's kind of hard to find. Actually, I might try and find it while I'm talking about it. We would basically, in the BYOC, which was the room that you would bring your own computer, they had a rule that you couldn't sleep there. The room was open 24/7. You game all around the clock. But if you were sleeping, you had to go by a hotel room. There was their deal with the hotel that they had this rule, which I don't know that it was enforced at all, but we took it upon ourselves to enforce it, being 19-year-old homeschoolers. And we would dress up in ninja outfits, and we had little mobile instruments and speakers. I had my bass and a little like kind of pocket amp, honeytone pocket amp, and I would clip it to my belt. And Benjamin had this tiny little keyboard thing, I forget what it was called. And then Austin, a drummer from the rock band, he would wear a keyboard with a duct tape strap, Casio keyboard with some C batteries in that baby.
There you are there. Do you see you?
Yeah, there you are. It was, 2012. So we would just go around and look for people sleeping at the computer and wake them up with an improvised, or like a terrible weird cover of Katy Perry or something like that. So that was, and we did like a music video over there, and it was pretty ridiculous. We actually did the second or third year we did that, we got on stage. They had like a open mic band stage for anyone who wanted to come play music, which was almost nobody. So we got to play on stage as we were called Tech Ninja, as in techno and ninja put together. But it was good times, and that definitely developed a kind of a boldness to go do things because you got a camera pointed at you, and that's what so many people from that. I mean, still today, everyone's into making goofy, funny videos and trying to get a lot of likes, get famous on the internet. But it did make us fairly well known within the event, though. Every time we'd come back years following, like the first day we were there, people are begging us to tell them when the party elevator is going to be, which is always on the same night, the last night. We just never specify that. That's just what we always did. And we'd never tell people. We'd keep it a secret. And they would see my hair and they'd be like, party elevator, we got recognized. And we even got one of the employees of one of the game developers had was it Id? Yeah, Id. He let us cut through the line to play the demo unreleased version of Doom 3, Doom 4, I forget what number it was. It came out 3-4 years ago. But yeah, he let us cut through line if we would tell him where the party elevator was going to be. So we got to cut through all our rivals and other groups, and it felt like kings. And we always feel like QuakeCon is the best weekend of the whole year. It's like Christmas.
And you guys still go every year, right?
We've stopped the last couple of years because it's kind of gotten a little bit, I don't know, boring. We want to go to another festival, or not festival, but a gamer convention like PAX or DreamHack or something, big boy stuff of the same type of convention. And then we always do tons of crazy videos and drink the whole time and party the whole time. And those are Just totally all my best friends are in that group. There's not a more fun group of friends that I know. So I always have a fondness in my heart.
All right. Well, what I want to do right now is start playing some of your music.
At some point, we should talk about the funk a little bit as well, because we haven't really got through that. Maybe after one of these songs, we can dive into that.
Sure. Oh, and I need can you hear the music?
Let me check. Yeah, it's very soft, but I hear it.
Okay.
I think it's coming out of your speakers only, maybe. Maybe it's not coming through the.
Yeah, and I'm pushing so much crap through it right now that it's. I don't know why it's so low, but it is. But anyway, keep talking.
Talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead. I want music in the background, so.
Yeah, go right ahead. So I played in that wedding band for a while after college, and that's where I would have played my first funk music, which would have been like Stevie Wonder, Brick House, some funk classics mixed in with everything else, the soul, the rock, and pop, and all that. And I didn't get bit by the funk bug or whatever it was until I watched a James Brown movie, a biopic on his life called Get On Up. And it totally inspired me and kind of basically educated me on what the music was about, because I thought it was very, very uncreative music originally, because with rock, the interest in the song was where you go and like kind of the pace at which you get there. There's like a flow, like you go verse to pre-chorus to chorus, and have these really dramatic, turns in the song. It's this constant flow, constant movement from one thing to the next. You never spend too much time anywhere. And then funk was this thing that repeated over and over and over and over and over again. Every verse sounded the same to me at that time. I remember vocalizing how much I hated Superstition by Stevie Wonder back when I was, 18, 19 or something like that, 17. But after I watched that movie, I got this, this whole education on it pretty much, that it wasn't about jumping from, from scene to scene. It was more about you find a groove that's magical, and you stay in that pocket, and you let the music, kind of digest with people. Make them keep thinking about that thing you're trying to push on them. Keep them in that vibe. And from that point on, I knew I had to experiment with funk. So I put together a funk band where I started singing as a front man for the first time. It was always behind a bass. I knew that I needed to just concentrate on the vocal style of funk to try and get it down. And so I put a band together called Funk Frequency, and was super fortunate to get some of the best musicians out of the school, UCO. Clayton Ropey on guitar, Bill Rapovich on drums, and Joe Richard on bass. Also had a keyboardist, Ryan, at the start, and then a friend of mine, Tracy Laughlin, was on vocals.
God, Tracy,
we did that.
Yeah. Tracy had a great voice.
Yeah.
And I remember the one night we were playing at Bricktown Brewery, and you guys picked me up. It was snow, it was ice, it was cold, but you guys were hot. And who was in the audience to watch you? From Moore, Oklahoma.
Oh, Toby Keith, baby.
Toby Keith. And Toby was just enthralled at listening and watching you guys because you guys were tight. You guys were, I mean, man, tight.
Yeah. Dude, I will say this for the record, if anyone from Funk Frequency's watching this, that the only thing that could possibly ever make me move back to Oklahoma would be Funk Frequency. Because I miss playing with those guys. They were so good. They should move out here to Colorado. Yeah. Take over Denver with me.
So tell me about how you got involved with Austin Collins, who's not related to you at all, and then how you moved on with Prismatic and other people doing some collaboration. Let's get into that.
Yeah, so as soon as I got at the same time I got into funk and started my funk group, at that time I also had Rave for my first electronic group. We ended up totally switching gears pretty much. We switched to doing a funky EDM. I wanted to know what that felt like, what it sounded like. We got really into Prince, especially in Parliament Funkadelic, and started trying to make that music in there. And at that time, we put out a song every 6 months. It was just really slow going at first because we were cutting our teeth. No idea what we were doing, but we had a couple artists we liked. One in particular was AU5. It was just destroying minds back in the day before anybody else was. It was a huge inspiration. We ended up getting to meet him in Oklahoma City, kind of on a fluke event. He booked a random show because his new booking agency was in Oklahoma, Earth Management Agency. And so he ended up playing the show there since he's going to be in Oklahoma City. We went to the show, we brought the CD that we'd all signed, and decorated, put our favorite 85 song or something like that, fanning out on him. And we were going to give it to him and try and meet him at that show, but he never came out. And so we found out he was sick. He wasn't able to come out because he was not feeling well. And so we posted a picture of it on Facebook, and he hit me up the next night, out of the blue, right as I was about to go to bed. And so I was stoked and called my buddy Benjamin up. And I was like, I'm taking, AU5 to go get pancakes. So we got to meet him that way. And so I stayed in contact with him a little bit. Obviously, he was a very busy man. So I kind of put up the cracks for a time, but I ended up coming to visit him out here in Colorado, and then we decided to move to Denver, where he was. He had just recently moved there too. And since I moved here, I've gotten to know him better and ended up collaborating with him on a song. The first song was, it's released already. It's called Laser Funk, Laser with a Z. One word, Laser Funk by AU5 featuring Nasty Purple. And that kind of solidified the predestined fact that we needed to work together.
Tell me about this song that's playing right now called One Last Drop.
This was a song inspired by James Brown, kind of vocally, the rhythm, the fast pace, that really tight syncopation tucked within the beat of the vocal. The actual music itself is a drum and bass during the verse, and it switches to dubstep for the drop. It was inspired a lot by Mr. Bill, people like Xylent, and AU5, of course. But yeah, it was just mixing one style of funk with one style of EDM, and it ended up being drum and bass. I didn't actually intend for that to be drum and bass. I just copied it after a James Brown drum part. So there's one example of funk is a lot more similar to modern music than people think.
One thing I've always appreciated about you and the other members from your first band, Emit, was you all were always fresh, on top of your game, and you never got into an artistic funk. And I think one of the reasons why was your side projects that you did that were totally for humor. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we had like some fake bands that we would basically what we'd do is we would just get together and stay up all night, getting drunk, getting high, and and recording with the software we ended up using for the electronic artists, or for our electronic incantation. But this is before that. Before we ever started making electronic music, we were making these just ridiculously stupid songs that were so stupid that they still make us laugh today.
And
But
one song that I thought was hilarious was we were at what's his name's house, the guy with the beard,
Dan.
And we were playing D&D. I flew in from Denver. I was living in Denver at the time. And, it's funny. I was there, you came to visit, then I moved back to Oklahoma, then you moved to Denver. Yeah.
We need to coordinate next time.
But it was interesting. I walked out, and here's these 20-year-olds on a Friday night at a house in the middle of the woods playing D&D, and I said, wow, hot boys playing D&D. And what happened to that phrase?
We ended up using it for a track. Yeah, we made a song, kind of like a prog metal, fantasy inspired, where we're kind of our friend Daniel was the narrator in that track, where he's setting up almost like a Dungeons and Dragons spiel. He's setting up a game off the top of his head because he was our dungeon master. So we all played D&D together, which was a fun time. It's those times as well. We and the song went from like this weird like Rush proggy metal kind of thing to
And when I was living in Denver, you flew up to see me for a special event that was in Denver for a concert. Who was that?
Oh, Sting. Back to bass.
Bass player. Tell us about that concert, because I still think it's one of the top 2 concerts I've been into in my whole life, and I have logged over 800 concerts in my, at my age. There's probably a band out of the 70s and 80s I either worked with or helped set up the stage for as a union roadie. But tell us about the Sting concert.
It was fantastic. It was really good.
What did you learn from it? What was your takeaway as a bass player and as an artist to see Sting?
Well, I've never been like, growing up, I wasn't into hardly any old music at all. Didn't care about anything, which is the total opposite now. Most of what I listen to is prior to 1980. But at the time, I didn't really know much about it, and it was something you invited me to. You're like, hey, Sting's awesome, you should come check it out. I'll fly you out to Denver. And so, but I've been listening to him leading up to that, and I was pretty struck by his artistry, both with Police and then solo after that. And, he's definitely one of the most special voices within music, both as a singer and a composer, and just being someone who's super unique, mixing in different time signatures and whatnot. And also the really impressive part was he was 60 at that concert, just turned 60 that year, and he was singing like he was 16 or 26.
Yeah, he
sounded so good. it was a good lesson of like someone who you could like listening to Sting. You can tell he really cares about himself. He puts his own well-being ahead of his artistic or his need to put out artistic output. I think a lot of artists, unfortunately, will get on the wrong side and they get, used or manipulated by a label, and they're not treated with dignity. They're not given the amount of time they need. But, someone like Sting is a good example for people of being a deep person and writing about, really subjects you wouldn't hear anyone else write about. Trying to be a really fresh voice, He wasn't trying to copy anyone. He didn't sound like anyone.
And I remember I told you he practices Kundalini yoga. And with Kundalini yoga, there were hand mudras and different body movements that I felt he was taking the whole audience on an emotional roller coaster with lots of dips and ups, and a Sting concert just isn't about music. It's an experience. Mm-hmm. Would you not agree?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, his music is...
How did that
simple,
influence
magical,
you?
mystical.
How did that influence to where you are today? Because what you do is about an experience, but you carry that with your voice and your artistry and what you record. But your live shows are fucking, sorry my language, but off the charts.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's everything I see concert-wise, even if it's just a small aspect, I'm always trying to find good aspects of what I'm listening to so I can be inspired by it. Certainly there's many great aspects of Sting, and I'm sure influenced me. I think vocally he influenced me, but with the way he would belt was something I was trying to learn how to do, and I do that with a lot of singers. I feel like that's super integral to my growth as a vocalist, has been just trying to impersonate singers, because you're never going to, no matter how good you are, you're never going to sound exactly like them. And there's going to be some singers that it's impossible for you to get close, but it will bring you somewhere new that you wouldn't have gotten to if you had, tried to imitate Prince or George Clinton or James Brown. But I mean, the biggest influences in my music today would be, I would say Prince, gotta put him first, and then George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic, James Brown, Sly and the Family Stone. I love all that classic funk. In rock and roll, I love Led Zeppelin, AC/DC. I love Jimi Hendrix. I love Little Richard. There's a little piece of every decade, both in funk and R&B, that I find you can trace, sort of a soulful, this person inspired this person, who inspired this person. So you can hear in Prince's music, even in the way he dresses, it goes all the way back to Little Richard. Little Richard was like the first flamboyant rock star figure, and you see that musically. So that's kind of like a whole new approach to music, rather than looking at something by the genre or the decade as much. You're looking for that, who, I love Prince, and you look up an interview, who inspired you? He says, this person, that person. You go back and check out those artists. You go back. And I feel like, a lot of, in the 90s, it was such a big shift. We lost a lot of influence, or a lot of that kind of, what am I trying to say? The American sound, that kind of soulful heritage really got kind of left out of music for a time, and I feel it's coming back around. It's been preserved in hip hop, even pop. The way that music works is really dancey. It gets its DNA from Michael Jackson, who got his DNA from his favorite artist, James Brown. And hip hop gets its DNA from Parliament Funkadelic. So everything that is big nowadays comes from funk.
James
You know it or
Brown.
not. And so that's why I say what?
James Brown. Whenever he performed live, every so often you would see him do this. Do you remember what that was? He would turn and look at someone and go,
Oh yeah. No, he would be cutting $5 for the paycheck for messing up. He'd be like, 5, 10, whatever you keep score of how much you would deduct.
and if you didn't know that about him, you just thought he was just, grooving to the music. But man, he was like, dude, you owe me $5.
Oh yeah. Well, and he didn't even. I mean, while he was making so much money towards the later part of his career, he was still shelling out, the same amount he'd been giving to his band since the start. Like barely anything. So which is interesting with artists like that. I really respect the art they did, and I feel like they're one. That's the justifying quality about them is their performance, their art, what they did for music, how they contributed and influenced music, rather than focusing on their bad qualities. But that is the nice thing, because I'll get to a point where I'm idolizing a person so much and almost trying to be too much like them within my own music. And then I'll find out these flaws about their character that'll help kind of humanize them for me, and then I can realize that I have to be my own person.
Well, we've been talking.
Which is the best. Go ahead.
We've been talking for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to kind of turn this show over to you and talk about yourself as an artist and talk about people that may not be familiar with your music, how you create it, and what your dreams and aspirations are. And I'm just going to let you talk. When you're done, we'll flash up your ad and we'll close out.
All right. Well, I'm Nasty Purple, and the purple and nasty comes from Prince. Nasty is just the way you talk about funk music when it's at its best. Biggest influencers for me in my music, other than the long history that we've just talked about, I can restate some things. Funk is something that really just totally shifted my perception of music. It made me want to write music in a way that would both grab people, provide, get them to dance as a new goal for my music, because I used to not do that. When I was writing for rock, no one danced. But funk not only is a fun musical style that really resonates with a lot of people, it's so much more than that. It's a life philosophy, which I can tell, as cheesy as it sounds, totally changed my life, 100%. That's something I've heard, kind of confirmed when I look up interviews of, George Clinton or James Brown, and I think they delivered through funk. The message was delivered to me that I really needed to hear was that in order to be soulful, in order to be funky, you have to be yourself. And I don't think that's quite as prominent with any other genre, perhaps maybe jazz, where you are required to be as much yourself as possible. Kind of gave me the notion that the more within my music, my art, the more myself that I delved into, the better the art was. That's the most powerful you can be is to be 100% you. And I feel like in a lot of music today, with some people it's a playful act, and you can tell that, but with other people it's a facade that is skin deep. You can feel that within their music too. And we live in interesting times where it's kind of a contradiction within music. You have top 40 music, which it's never taken more money to get a Bruno Mars or a Katy Perry as far as how much money has to go into the marketing and, building up that person's career. But at the same time, music has never been easier for someone to record at their own house. So there's no reason to not be yourself. And that's the ultimate goal of mine, is to trick people into delving into a higher state of consciousness within my music.
Brian, I appreciate our friendship. I appreciate the fact that I never said you had to follow my direction 100%, but you still call me and pick my brain, and I give you my honest reply. But you have grown as an artist in the last 15 years. You have accomplished a hell of a lot by age 30. And it's going to be interesting to see where you are 15 years from now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put up your ad. Tell people about your Spotify, your email, what type of emails you're looking for from what type of people. So we're going to market the crap out of this hour-long show, but talk to us about what you see on the screen.
Sorry, you broke up there? You just want me to talk about what's on the screen here?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, definitely check out my music on Spotify specifically. If you need to check out anything, I would listen to The Pocket and Laser Funk. Those are my top two favorite songs. One with Prismatic, my friend John Schmulowitz, who's also moved in here to Colorado. We've all kind of found ourselves in Denver, and I feel like this creative hub of collaboration between different EDM artists that are, I don't know, we make good music together. What more is there to say? And but you can listen to that on Spotify. With both those artists, I've got some exciting new music coming out on some exciting labels, which I'll be announcing shortly. As soon as we're ready to announce it. But it should be around Christmas time.
So if other artists, nastypurplemusic@gmail, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, that's the best email to get in contact with me. Instagram is a fun place to check out. I post a lot of live videos and kind of day-to-day stuff of, what's going down in Denver and in my musical world, and the experience of being my own artist now for the first time, being the sole proprietor of a music artistry is really daunting, but in 1 year, which has been just over 1 year, I'm very thankful to have gotten done what I've gotten done, even though in the moment sometimes I often sell myself short of what I've accomplished. But really looking back in the last year, it's been about as good as it can get. I've gotten to perform with AU5, Prismatic, with Virtual Riot, with Silent, with a couple others that I can't think of at the moment. And I'm very thankful, very, very thankful.
Well, thank you.
Where this is going, very excited. And thank you for having me on the show.
Hey, you're the first show we had. Okemah Free Press. We're going to cover things on news, music, art, politics. We'll give you another side of the view of media that you don't hear in mainstream media. But you can join. My email is okemahfreepress@gmail. Website is okemahfreepress.wordpress.com. Thank you again, Brian. I appreciate your friendship. Man, I love your music. I always have. And See you soon.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks for having me.
All right.